Hello, friends. Welcome to the Cold War Prepper. And tonight we're doing our nonfiction book club. And so that is basically, we talk about handbooks and things like that, where we are looking at books that are going to help us survive whatever's coming. So we're still working on Decline and Decay, strategies for surviving the coming unpleasantness. And this is by Angry American and Alan Kay. So so far it's a pretty good book. I'm getting a lot out of it. He does have some things that you're getting very rudimentary coverage over. However, they have other things that are excluded in most of the other books. Chapter 1 in this book about the psychology and how to take care of yourself in a pre, during, and post apocalyptic scenario are phenomenal. There are some tips tonight that probably are not discussed in this detail, but then again, when we get into chapter 15, bartering, there are some things that you probably would expect that he does not put in there. And I believe it's intentional because there are so many people who talk about all these things about barter. And, I think that barter is going to be basically somebody needs something, you have it, they have what you need, and you have your thing, and the two of you are going to agree on something, and that'll transact the barter. So it's all need based. And so to say that there is a list of things that you should have, I don't think that's probably true. It's all going to be based upon the scenario. So welcome, hello Tofu and Holly and Marie 2024. Good evening to all of you. So if you all don't mind, what I'm going to do is first I want to make an addition. I did all the work last night on the video for the first aid video that we did last night. I failed to mention my favorite channel as far as first aid and knowledge about stuff. And this guy is an EMT. A helicopter EMT, as a matter of fact, and his name is Prep Medic. And I failed to mention that last night. I did put him in the show notes, but that is one of my favorite first aid channels. He does some really good reviews on, he has one on Stop the Bleed. He has one on CPR. He does first aid kit reviews and his assessment of them from the opinion of an EMT. I mean, really great information. So I strongly recommend you subscribe to Prep Medic, PrepMedic. Now that I've said that, I'm going to, with your permission, okay, I don't see any objections. With your permission, I'm going to reverse the order in which we do these, because chapter 16, which is Consumables, is only about 4 pages long. And then we can spend a little bit more time on bartering and bickering, which is chapter 15. So I'm going to do 16 first and then come back to 15, unless there are some serious objections and I'm messing somebody up totally. So when we get into consumables, let me get here into my banners. And so we're going to talk about consumables first, which is chapter 16. And it starts off with a quote by A American, by Chris. And you remember, we've had Chris on the channel. We interviewed him, and he said he's willing to come back to the channel anytime. We might have him back after we finish this book, because just ask him some of his priorities and things like that. But he does say, when the day comes, what you have is what you have. And so when we talk about consumables, it's all those things you're going to use up over time. And probably the most important one is going to be food. So he talks about other consumables you might want to consider having a stockpile of. Southern Prepper 1 is an expert at getting his supply of consumables. I mean, he will have videos where he goes into town and he finds 10-penny nails on sale, and where he finds hinges or lock hinges or something like that. I mean, he is constantly scrounging for things to build things after SHTF. That's Southern Prepper 1. And it's the number 1, not spelled out. Some of the categories that A American recommend are hardware, plumbing supplies, lumber, rolls of plastic, hand tools, other things that are going to join things together. Wood glue, super glue, tape, 100-mile-an-hour tape was what we call it in the Army. Other people, it's changed. It was originally duct, D-U-C-T, because the silver was used for sealing ducts in your air conditioning system and heating system. And people mispronounced that. So it went from duct, D-U-C-T, and now people call it duck, D-U-C-K. And so that's kind of how it transformed its name over time. Some of the other things that he recommends strongly looking into are clothing and shoes. And one of the things that he makes a really good solid point about with shoes is that most of us today buy our shoes for fashion more so than function. And so what you want to do is you want to take a look at Scott and Hello Tofu. Thank you so much for putting those channels there. I really, really appreciate that. And so we want to take a look at function, because you want to have shoes with good soles, some ankle support. We're going to be doing a lot more outdoor working, walking, even running in some cases, in some heavy duty outdoor shoes and boots. So you take a look at your shoes and boots, and you might want to get one or two pair, break one in for sure, because you may need a second pair over time. Same thing with clothing. What's really funny is that people, he points it out in here, people will pay $150 for a pair of jeans that started out as a $20 set of Wranglers, and then you pay somebody to tear them up and distress them so they look worn and torn, and then you pay $150 for them. Why not just buy the $20 ones and wear them out yourself? So get a couple pair of jeans, a couple pairs of maybe some cargo slacks or something like that. Socks. If you ask the homeless, the number one thing that the homeless want are socks. And, socks kind of begin to solidify after 24 hours. And so, in my bug out bag, I have a Ziploc bag full of socks, simply because in the military, socks and foot powder are the two things that the soldier lives by. And so I strongly recommend you have plenty of socks in your cache of consumables. Oh, by the way, if you look it up in the dictionary, C-A-C-H-E, the proper pronunciation is cache, not cachet. Okay, so it's C-A-S-H is how it's pronounced, but it's spelled C-A-C-H-E. So Hello Tofu kind of agrees with that. She says she doesn't like the overpriced stuff. My opinion, so this is just my opinion, I would now I'll give you an exception to it after I say it. I would much rather get the $25 durable than the $150 fantastic looking. And I think that's going, because you can get 6 $25 durables for the price of one $150 wear outs. They're going to wear out very quickly. Get you and when we're speaking on about shoes, get you some extra shoelaces if they are laced. Make sure you have extra shoelaces. Make sure you get some shoe goo, S-H-O-E-G-O-O, shoe goo. And you can use that to put on the bottom of your shoe to replace any kind of worn areas in your sole, because we probably aren't going to have any, shoe repair people around. I forget what it's called. It's been so long since I've seen one. Now, there used to be a company, and so my first pair of shoes, they're bronzed, were a pair of Tony Lama boots, because we lived about a mile away from the Tony Lama factory in El Paso. So, 1 mile away from my house was Tony Lama boots and Ferris slacks. And now Tony Lama boots has been replaced by the Cielo Vista Mall, where that mass thing happened at the Walmart here about a year ago. But anyhow, that used to be Tony Lama boots, and those are good boots, by the way, if you can find them. And then the Ferris slacks is now Farrah Mall. So they just renamed it, turned it into a mall, and it's still called Farrah. But let me see here. If you have small kids at home, make sure you plan on growth spurts, and you're going to need some additional clothing sizes up. And you can get a stockpile of clothing if you have children at some place like St. Vincent de Paul, or at Goodwill, or other places where you're going to get things that, kids are going to wear them out anyway. Usually they outgrow them before they wear them out is my experience. You can also hit up yard sales. So the question becomes one that he ends the chapter with is, um, if I run out of something right now, I can run to Walmart, or I can go to J.C. Penney's, or I can go to um, Target or Kohl's or Sam's Club or all these other, hello Calamity Jane, all these other different places. And so that's an easy convenience. We aren't going to have that convenience after SHTF. That's going to be few and far between. So what can you get now cost effectively that you can plan for what you need in the future? I like these Levi t-shirt shirts, long sleeve. Helen gets me a couple of these for Christmas almost every year. They are just phenomenal. You can wear it as a t-shirt, you can wear it as a shirt, an outer shirt. It's just a great shirt. It was only in the 60s here in Austin today. I went to watch my grandson play soccer, and so this was perfect as an outer garment. And in the 60s, it worked perfectly as far as wind protection as well as chill protection. So, plan those things: shoes, socks, underwear. I know ladies, your bras wear out fairly quickly and can become uncomfortable. So make sure you have a couple extras of those. Um, and then, of course, your outer garments, slacks and shirts. You're going to be, take a look at what the farmers wear, and it's okay to buy what the farmers wear because that's probably going to be what we'll be wearing. That's exactly what we'll be looking like in a post-SHTF environment. And so, don't spend a whole bunch of money on cool tactical stuff or camouflage stuff or something like that. That you're just wasting your money. Get something that's far more durable, at Tractor Supply or somewhere like that. A good coat, good coveralls, good shirt, and shoes, socks, and underwear, and you've got it made. That's for consumables. Okay, now let's go back one chapter. Let's go back to chapter 15, which is bartering and bickering. I have my own personal opinions that I'll share with you. I've done a couple of videos about it. Number one, how to be safe. Now, probably the two things I'm going to recommend to you, two authors who wrote an awful lot about bartering and bickering because they had to do it in order to survive. There's actually three, but the third one's kind of hard to find. So the first one is Selko Begovic. And Selko he started out with just an article, My Year in Hell, or How I Survived 1 Year in Hell. And it was about the Bosnian conflict and things that he had to do, bartering. One guy had to use 5 ounces of gold. Now think of it. Right now, that's about $10,000 to get some antibiotics for his wife when she came down with an infection. But they talk about, the items that they need. What really becomes important is how he came about going to get those items and then making it back to his place safe. And he talks about he was always under the eyes of snipers when he went to barter, and then he was under the eyes of snipers going home. So when I get I get all of my plaid wool flannel shirts at Bass Pro Shops. And so, and they have one brand there, and it's got a duck on it. But I think it's the Bass Pro Shop name brand shirt, but it's guaranteed not to shrink, and that's one of the reasons I do it. Is because I have long arms, and so if you take a look here, take a look at these sleeves, and yeah, there we go. So with long arms, these sleeves are going to be kind of short. Hello, Triple G Farms. And so that's where I get mine. I get mine at Bass Pro Shop. So Cabela's and Bass Pro Shop. Cabela's is now owned by Bass Pro Shop, so they carry the same lines. But I would say either one of those two. The third place I would go to get decent quality flannel shirts is going to be Tractor Supply. And so those would be the three places I would go for good shirts. Oh, good suggestion, Holly. Thank you so much. So she says, bras are a problem to buy. so many cheap companies, and so she suggested that you get sports bras. And fantastic suggestion. Thank you. Um, Scott says that Selko's books are really eye-opening. Yes, so he lived through it. He knows what he's talking about. He's talking about experience and not about theory. So Selko Begovic is the first one. The second one is Furfal Aguirre, and he survived the Argentinian, although he says Argentinian financial collapse in 2000, 2001. He has a channel here on YouTube, and I'll put it in the show notes after the show. But he does, and I think it's I forget, but anyhow, he does have a channel. He posts quite regularly. Believe what those two say because they lived through it. And the third one is a guy called Venezuela Prepper, and his stuff is hard to find, but he also talks about what's going on in Venezuela and how he has to barter for his things and how he does that. So those would be the three that I would look at. I don't either. And I retired. Gosh, I've been retired now longer than I served. That is something. I retired in 1991. So Scott supports that. Yeah, Furfal is meant. I think it's Manuel Furfal Aguirre. But anyhow, and I have not yet. We have a Duluth trading company here in town. I have not yet shopped there. I need to go try it out. They are a little bit more costly than what I'm used to. But then again, it's probably going to be like Tony Lama boots or, a Stetson hat, that they are a little bit, you get what you pay for. I was going to tell you, the first shoes that I bought, the first shoes I owned were the ones that were issued to me in basic training, Army low quarters. And then when I retired, my mother bought me for my birthday a pair of loafers from a company called SAS, or San Antonio Shoes. And they're just down the road about 60 miles. And the nice thing about them was they had a lifetime guarantee. Once you wore that shoe out, you could take it back to the shoe store. They would send it off, and for $20, they would rebuild it back into almost a brand new shoe. So I had nothing. All of my shoes were San Antonio shoes or SAS shoes, and they went out of business here. As a matter of fact, the store that I owned, the Postal Annex that I owned, was 1/3 of the old SAS shoe store that went out of business in 2003 here in the greater Austin area. So modern survivalist, thank you, Scott. You're a champ. So subscribe to this channel. He's going to give you some good information, and he'll talk about his past experiences. So I'm going to read a couple things I have highlighted here about bartering from A. American and Alan Key. So yeah, sports bras, a support of that from Hello Tofu. Low quarters, easy to shine. Yeah, we had to spit shine ours, and then I bought Corfams. Birkenstocks, my wife swears by Birkenstocks. That's all she owns, as a matter of fact. The problem is I am unaware of any Birkenstocks that give you good ankle support. I mean, everything I've seen from Birkenstock is kind of a sandal shoe. If I could be wrong, but I think everything my wife has are kind of like sandals, although she wears them for formal shoes type things. As a matter of fact, she has a pair of Jerry Garcias that the local Birkenstock dealer offered her a couple $100 to buy her used Birkenstocks because the Jerry Garcia Birkenstocks are in such great demand, and they were in limited production. So you can get big money for used ones. They just put a new pad in because they have that cork sole that conforms to your feet, to your own foot pattern. So Birkenstocks are fantastic. Just not so sure if they're going to last in a tactical or work environment, farming environment. Okay, so here are some of the things that Alan Kay and A. American say. Many people in the prepper world think of bartering as a near utopian idea, where markets will be set up and people will interact freely in the open to trade their wares or surplus for what they want and need. The reality is quite different. And that's what both Selko Begovic and for Falagid, I say, it's not going to be those markets. And if they are, they're going to be difficult to get to and difficult to get back from. And then we're going to explain a little about that as we go here. So it says the rules will always be in flux, prices will always be changing in the items and the items availability. The only constant in bartering is that there is no constant. It is often fraught with danger and not something to be entered into hastily. And so then he gives some rules, and we'll talk about some of those. Never trade from your base. He says home. I'm going to say base in case you bugged out. So don't let people barter with you at wherever it is that you use your primary location. You want to go to a neutral area in order to do any kind of bartering. So anybody who comes to your place to try to trade or beg for things, treat them with suspicion. So he says, anyone from outside of your circle must be treated with suspicion and distrust. It is the nature of the game. Likewise, never trade at the other person's house or home turf either. And because you're giving them the home turf advantage, they know the area, they've got it defensively set up. You take your things to barter, you're gone, they keep, they get everything, and you don't have a life anymore. Decide on a neutral location. Agree on the price ahead of time so that you say, I don't have anything with me now. This is what I'm looking for, or what a friend is looking for. And these are the things that he's looking for to get for it. Or what do you have to offer for it? And then I'll have to go talk to him and see if he agrees to the trade and get that product from him and come back and trade with you. So you never have the product that you're willing to trade on the first time you go out because you just may not reach an agreement. So the other thing is, if you are out bartering or offering something to trade, the first inclination of anybody, and he gets into that here in the book, is to think that, why are you giving this away? Because it's an excess. And so if it's excess, you have plenty of them back at your home. So they're probably going to try to follow you and get the other stuff you have if this is considered excess. So the key here is when you get into a trading dilemma, you say, well, I have a friend who has a friend that maybe I can get what you're looking for. And let me see, give me a couple of days to get it and we'll get this done. No, I don't have immediate access to it, but I think I know somebody who does, and we might be able to get something for you. So that's how you're going to handle their side of what they're requesting from you. You never have it. You're going to get it from a friend of a friend, and it's going to take you a day or two to get it. If you say, yeah, I'll go get it and bring it back, that indicates that in your group, there's an excess. So always act like you have to look for it. You have to go arrange to receive it, that it's not something you have just in your stockpile that you're willing to get rid of. Never trade from a point of desperation either. Let's go back to the trading location. You're always going to take people to watch your back, okay? They're always going to take people to watch their back. Before you get into the trade, say, look, I'm bringing a security group of 3 people. If I see more than 3 people on your security group, then the deal's off. Okay. So you want to agree on how big is a security force going to be to watch your back. And you say, you'll be able to see one of them. The other 2 are going to be hidden, but I'm going to have a security force of 3. I expect you to reciprocate with that. Now, here's the thing. Always tell the truth. Because if they find out that you brought 5 when you agreed to 3, then you're probably never going to be able to get anything from them again. They just won't trust you because you've broken your word. Always keep your word in these kinds of environments, okay? Never trade from a point of desperation. Never just say, here, I need, like the guy who gave up the $10,000, 5 ounces of gold for some antibiotics. Never be desperate. The minute you're desperate, you're marked, and they're going to take you for everything you got. Just think about buying a car. If you're not willing to turn your back on the deal, then they know you're desperate to get it. And if you say, no, that's too expensive, I I can't do that. And you turn around and start to walk away, they'll always offer you a secondary deal, and it's going to be a little bit better than the deal that you originally had. 99.9% of the time, think of your yard sales, think of your garage sales. I sold a $100 flight jacket for $25. I had it marked for 25. I had it marked for 50, and I sold it for 25. That's what people expect. They expect in a barter situation, in a garage sale, in a market, in a barter environment, that you have already overmarked what you're willing to pay for it, and they expect to barter, or they expect to haggle. And so that's just part of the deal. That's how it's going to go. Do not keep all your money, gold, or whatever you're trading in one pocket. Disperse it throughout you. If you've got a security person with you, give some of it to that person, so that now you have to look for it when you're in the actual consummation of the barter deal. You don't want to look like you came with a whole bunch just on you. Avoid trading with the same person too often until trust is established. Word will get around that if you constantly trade with this person and you always have what they want, word's going to get around that you've got a stockpile, right? And then you become a target. So you don't want to deal with the same person too often. You can ask for things, every once in a while, ask for something that you think there's no way they'll have. And, then, and when they say, well, what are you wanting to give for it? You say, gosh, I don't know. But, always act like you don't have that much to give, but you're willing to take a couple days to find what it is that they want for it. So then the next paragraph says, so a good way to mitigate this is to act as a middleman, as the guy who knows the guy who needs it or wants it. First, it takes the attention away from you. And second, there will always be a finder's fee involved. So, let them know, hey, I don't know, I'm taking care of this deal for him. So if you want a Zippo lighter, from him, somebody's got to pay me a commission for doing this, so what am I going to get from him? Are you going to pay it, or is he going to pay it? I need to get something, because I'm the one that's risking everything and being out here exposed, trying to consummate this deal. So, I've got to ask him for a Zippo Plus, and he's probably not going to give that. So see what I'm saying? You want to act as the middleman, not as a guy who has it, but it's a guy who knows somebody who has it. And plus, you want a commission. So, just like I'm going to make something from you, right, in this deal. So you're offering 2 amoxicillins for this deal. Well, guess what? I need 3, 1 for me and 2 for the guy that I'm going to be trading with in order to get it. And if you do that on a regular basis, that you're the middleman, then it takes all the attention away from you, and they're probably not going to be following you or raiding you or attacking you as much as if you were the person doing it for yourself. Alternate your routes going in to the wherever the trading place is, and alternate your routes going back. Make sure you have somebody behind you who is delaying going back, and delaying enough so that they can see if you're being followed. So probably, you leave, then they wait 15 minutes and see if there's anybody following you, and then they bring up the rear. So you always want to have somebody just making sure that you are not being followed, and then have a way of communicating with each other, let you know after the trade that you're being followed, so you double back on them, and they know that they're following them, and they stop. So when people have nothing and they think you have something, that's when there's a chance that you're going to become an immediate target. As a matter of fact, in book, the one we just discussed, in book 5 of A American's series, and with the forest fire, that's the one where a guy was killed over a can of corn. This other guy was so desperate when he saw that the family of 4 had a can of corn, he killed the man for his can of corn. So that is probably going to be a reality in a post-SHTF environment. The people who have nothing also have nothing to lose. And so they're going to be extremely desperate, extremely dangerous in trying to acquire goods. So watch out for them. Be very, very cautious of them. Um, Now he advocates, he says, for me, one of the biggest takeaways from reading about Selko Begovic as well as Perfalagire is the biggest takeaways from Selko's words was this: never give charity. And so he recommends, and this is really a great recommendation, and I'm going to have to figure out a way to make it work. Uh, in his words, it lets everyone know you had so much that you can afford to give it away. If your morals demand you give charity, and mine do, fall back to the middleman. Tell people, I can't give you anything. But if you go to this location, he specifically mentions a church on Main Street, Wednesdays at 2:00, they will have something to give you. Okay. Now, what you can do is you can take what you want to give them to the church and let the church give it to them. That way, you're not marked as the person who has too much, but that there is a place where, and if you say Wednesday, like right now, since today's Tuesday, I probably would not say Wednesday. I'd probably say Friday. They give away on Fridays at 3:00. What I would do is I would take it over tomorrow, Wednesday, and then there would be a day or two wait, and then they'd go there on Friday. I'd let them know there's going to be a guy coming here, and this is for him. I would probably also take something to the church, for them acting as that middleman, give them that fee. Never insult the other party. Never insult the quality of the products that they have to offer for you. Just don't say, well, that's cheap crap or anything like that. I don't want that. It's just junk, and that's when you begin insulting. And so you don't want to do that. You don't want to upset the other person because, vindication is going to be extreme in a post-SHTF environment. So always be polite but firm, and above all else, he says here, and I mentioned it earlier, be ready to walk away. In many cases, simply saying, that's just more than I can afford right now, or more than I can do as far as a barter right now. Thank you. Turn your back and walk away. Now, I will tell you, growing up in El Paso, and this is before the cartels, we'd go across the Santa Fe Bridge, and I got my driver's license when I was 14, so I always parked my car. It was a Volkswagen Beetle on the American side, and I'd pay somebody, 25 cents. Back then, that was a lot of money. To watch it, because the biggest thing was they'd come steal your tires. So if you paid somebody 25 cents, they'd watch your car for you. And then we'd go across the border, the Chamazal Bridge, Santa Fe Bridge, and we'd go into Juarez. So there's all these street vendors. It's a typical border town. They got the wooden snakes and all this other crap, and the Elvis Presley on velvet paintings and all this kinds of stuff. So if you wanted something, you just looked at him, he said, how much is it? And he would say, it's 25 pesos. You say, no, I can't afford that. I'll give you 20. He says, oh, no, it's 25. Say, okay, thank you. And you walk on down. Well, what happens is it always gets cheaper as you go further into the city. And he knows that. And so he's willing to make the trade. So he's going to give you a reduced price. So he might even go down to 15, just so he gets the sale and you don't go to another vendor further down the street. Kind of the same thing in bartering, okay? If you're willing to walk away, they will, if they really want what you have to offer in trade, they will come down in price and they will agree with you. Remember, those people are just as desperate. They've got something to give away because they need or want something and they want it from you. So the ultimate survival tool, he says, is cash. So he recommends that you get the money belt from Wazoo Survival Gear. And I'll put that in the show notes. Wazoo, Wazoo, Survival Gear money belt. And it's got that zipper on the inside so you can put cash or precious metals or anything inside the belt. And then that way you have something kind of semi-hidden from the other people. My problem is I'm allergic to formaldehyde, so I can't wear anything with leather. So that's not going to do me too much good. Um, he says when society is in the throes of collapse, precious metals will generally have limited value, but they will have some value. They're bulky, heavy, and difficult to conduct transactions with. There's here's the problem with that, and that kind of ends this chapter. So now we're kind of open to free flow. So part of the problem is coming up with a definition of what the price is. And so the price is whatever somebody else is willing to give you in exchange for it. There is no set currency. The one thing about silver, gold, or even dollar bills is that by me giving that to you for what you have, it enables you to give that to somebody else for what they have. So here's the reality of a barter situation that very few people really talk about. And is it really true that Triple G Farms is the last comment? I can't believe that. Oh, there's Calamity Jane. Okay. Um, did I hit end broadcast? Are we still active? Give me a I'm still here type of a message if everybody's still here, if I'm still doing good. Are you hearing me? Are you seeing me? It says I'm still live, but I'm not getting any comments. Have I bored everybody away? There we go. Okay, thank you, Scott. I'm just not seeing that much in the chat, so I was wondering if it was still live or not. Because the other night, for some reason, it stopped. So here's what it is. I have a bottle of water, okay, but I need a can of coffee, okay. So, what are the odds that there's a person out there with a can of coffee, especially since only 5% of the population is prepping, who happens to be looking for a bottle of water? So, the odds of two people having something that they want to exchange, but they need something else, meeting each other are extremely slim. Okay. So, that's why it's always best to try that middleman approach. Um, Now then, there's a whole bunch of people who are telling you there's a whole bunch of great stuff that you can trade or barter. Buy whiskey, buy cigarettes, buy all these other different things. So I would say, what are the things you yourself are most likely going to want? That's what you want to have for barter. Now, here's my personal opinion. This is the way I do things. So I'm not saying that is the right way. I'm just saying it's my way. Um, I would much rather invest money in food and water purification and water storage and medicine and first aid than I would on something to barter. Now, the things that I have bought to barter, I bought a long time ago, little bitty sewing kits and things like that, little dollar items, dollar and a half items. I do have 3 or 4 Zippo lighter kits, and that's the cardboard thing that has a Zippo light or a can of fluid and a package of flints. Okay, I got 3 or 4 of those that I can trade away. But that same stuff that I spent on the Zippo lighters, I could have spent that money on food. What am I going to trade those Zippo lighters for? So think, what is it that you're going to be looking for? Why not go ahead and get that now while it's available and inexpensive instead of buying something that you're going to trade for that later on? Does that make sense? And so I would say, let's take a look at tobacco. There's a big rage about, people are going to be, a person who smoke. I used to smoke, and people who smoke, yes, they do anything for cigarettes. The old C rations, they had a package of 4 or 5 cigarettes in every C ration, up until around 1976-ish. And yeah, I would trade my cocoa for cigarettes out in the field. If you're hooked, you are hooked. You need them. But right now, only 18% of the population of the US smoke cigarettes. So that means only 1 out of every 5, roughly, people are going to want what you have, those cigarettes, in exchange for what they have. Now, what's the odds if 95% of the United States is not prepping that they're going to have what you're looking for, that you want to get those cigarettes away. So first off, it's 1 in 5 you're going to find somebody who will accept your cigarettes as trade. Then what are the odds of that person having what it is you want? See how this gets more and more complicated? And that's why we started off the chapter with that quote from him. Let me get back here and read that to you again, because I think it's a fantastic quote. Where is it here? Oh, here it is. Many people in the prepper world think that bartering is a near utopian idea where markets will be set up and people will interact freely in the open to trade their wares or surplus for what they want and need. The reality looks quite different. So let's take a look at those assumptions. The first assumption is that they're going to want what you have purchased to trade. Okay, so that's assumption number one. Assumption number two is that 95% of the population, the unprepared people, are going to have what you want or need. Now, if they're unprepared and you are, chances are you've got more than they do. So why would you go to them seeking what they have? Because they don't have anything. And so that makes it a much more complex situation. I don't place as much credence in barter as a lot of other people do. And number two, as Selko points out, they shot at him every time he tried to go through the streets of Bosnia, of his hometown, to try to get something. He was being shot at. They were taking pot shots at him, going there and coming back. So it's going to be a dangerous enterprise. So you got to make sure that when you're going for something, it's something you absolutely have to have. And I, personal belief, if you take care of your food, your water, fire, and your sanitation and hygiene, and your medical needs, if you've got one of these, then you're the person who's going to get the $10,000 in gold from the other person for a bottle of antibiotics, not the person who's giving $10,000 in gold for antibiotics. So think about these things ahead of time before we get into an SHTF situation, and that's going to make you the person who has the items of value. And so that's why I advocate medications, just fantastic. And fire starting equipment. I've got a whole bucket full of fire starting equipment. You can, every time you go to the grocery store, we have HEB here in Texas, and that's I forget what HE stands for, but that's his initials. Last name was Butts. I think it's Howard Butts. But that's the largest grocery store chain here in Texas. And so every time I go, there's one aisle where it has these little bitty boxes of Strike Anywhere matches. I think you get 10 boxes for like $1.50. And, that's an investment. Now, if you want to barter something, that's something to have. When I had my store and I could get my my company discount on my credit card at Sam's, and this was before they closed down their smoke shops, they had trays of Bic lighters for like $35. So maybe 50 mini Bic lighters for $35. That was a great deal. I bought a couple of those. So I got a bucket full of those now that I can barter. But anything right now that I buy, I am not buying it for the purpose of barter. I take that back. I bought a bottle of vodka. It's sitting right there. I did buy a bottle of vodka. I don't have any vodka here. I didn't have any vodka here in the house. I bought that little 2-pint bottle last week, and this week I bought the fifth of vodka. And the reason is because somebody mentioned that vodka has the highest alcohol content typically, and you want alcohol that is 140 proof, 70% alcohol content or higher to be of medicinal value. And then you can also mix that with different herbs and spices and plants to make tinctures and salves and medicines. So having a little bit of vodka in the house, if somebody's really needing an alcoholic drink, the vodka will be fine. But you can also buy it primarily for medicinal purposes and then have it available to trade out. So that's kind of the one exception where I am currently buying things solely for the purpose. Well, I'm saying solely with barter in mind, but they also have an alternative purpose. So everything else is for my personal consumption. And I may have a little bit extra or something, but once we establish a free market here in the area, then I'm going to feel a lot more comfortable about taking things and bartering those or trading those in what you might call a black market or a free market or a farmer's market or what do they call those on the roadside that pop up and you stop in? Flea market or a flea market, but it's going to have a lot of security around the outside to take care of you. And so for that, I bought one of those 6-foot folding tables and 2 folding chairs, so that when we get to that point where there is a market, I'll have a table that I can display what it is that I'm willing to trade out in exchange for what I'm willing to have. But I was also counting on having 2 adult family members here in the household to guard the household while I was out bartering. And now they're moving to New Jersey. So that's just going to leave me and Helen. So I don't think that I'll be out bartering that much actively until I can get somebody that I can trust to guard my house while I'm out doing that. So that's kind of where we are. Let me know your thoughts, ideas, and everything else. Even though you got some items to barter with, it appears that those items are things you would actually use yourself. Absolutely. Now, let me take that back. Gosh, when was it? I was smoking at the time. So this had to be, I was hospitalized in 2015. So they've probably been out in the refrigerator since 2015. I was working at I was the HR director for the homeless shelter in downtown. It's the 3rd largest homeless shelter in the U.S. And so, of course, going down the elevator, the executive parking garage was also the smoking area for the homeless. And so I would go down there to have a cigarette and talk to them. And they have a kit. It's called TOPS, TOPS. You can order the TOPS kit on Amazon, and it's a cigarette roller. And so it's a little pressure tube, and maybe I'll do a video and show it on you. But what the homeless did was they would go down the streets around the homeless shelter and down on 6th Street, which is the big entertainment area here in Austin, all the bars and country western, all that kinds of stuff. And they would pick up cigarette butts on the street. Now, the top system comes with pre-made filtered cigarette tubes. So you take this tube and you put it inside this machine. Then they would squeeze the tobacco out of the butts into the filling chamber. And then once they got that filling chamber filled with the used butts from the other cigarettes, they'd ram that into the tube. And then they had basically a new used cigarette. So it'd be used tobacco, that tobacco that had all the nicotine come through it at the very end of it, but that would be in a new tube so that they could reuse it. So I bought probably 1,000 tubes. I have a machine, and I have probably 4 pounds of cigarette tobacco out in my refrigerator out in the garage. It's been out there now for about 8 or 9 years, probably stale. I don't know. Bugler tobacco in the can, so it's not open, but it's been kept cold, kind of like a humidor. I bought that primarily for me because I was smoking at the time, but now it is one of my primary barter items. But I don't place a lot of credence in it because remember, only 18% of the U.S. smokes. So, 72% of the U.S. doesn't value it. Probably if I were going to have something for barter, but I would also consider that for, a family member that I would have feminine hygiene products. So let's take a look at the efficacy of feminine hygiene products, having those for trade, for barter. So you're going to, keep a bunch of these things. Number one, females are 51% of the population. So when you say you're going to barter female hygiene products, you've automatically reduced your barter population down by 1/2. Okay. Now then, let's take into consideration that group, that 51% group. So, and I'm going to use rough figures here. They may not be accurate. I'm using it for example. So please don't get upset if I have my percentages off. But I'm going to say basically 1/3 of the female population is prepubescent and does not need feminine hygiene products. 1/3 of the female population is postmenopausal and does not need feminine hygiene products. So only that 1/3 in the middle that is postpubescent, premenopausal are going to have any need for feminine hygiene products. So now you're talking about the consumption demand for what you're saving to barter is going to be 1/3 of 1/2 or 1/6 of the population. So that's about the same as, because 1/6 is about 17%. Guess what? We're at the same population rate as our cigarettes. So about 18%. So, think about these things. If you need it for yourself or for a family member or for somebody in your group, yes, get lots of it. Get it for your own personal consumption, get it for your group's consumption. But when you start thinking about things to barter, start doing the math in your head. What is going to be the demand of this product? And then that's going to give you a true value as it stands out in society. Now, I will say, for a smoker, they'll do anything for a cigarette. For those people who are in the right population age, the right gender, those products that you have, the feminine hygiene products, are going to be in high demand. I would say, toilet paper is going to be in high demand. Look at what happened. Take a look at what happened during the lockdown in 2020. What were the things people could not find that became high demand items? Those are the things you want. In my store, it just so happens, pure luck, absolute pure luck. The Lord was looking after me. That's all I can say. I did the Mother Earth preparedness expo in Belton, Texas. And it was a 3-day workshop and all about homesteading and preparedness and survivalism and everything else. Big expo here in Central Texas. And so I had my table there and I was selling my Thrive Life foods. And this guy came up and he said, "Hey, look at this." And he showed me this package, and he had picked up like 5 pallets of them from the government, and it was a flu kit. So it was and inside this plastic bag, brown plastic bag or green plastic bag, it had an N95 mask, it had a bottle of hand sanitizer, it had a pair of nitrile gloves, and it had one other thing in there. And so he says, "I've got 5 pallets of these." He says, "I need to get rid of them. Would you be interested in any?" And I thought about it for a minute, and I said, "Well, yeah, give me 5 cases." And my wife went crazy because I just spent $2,000 on 5 cases of these flu pandemic kits, okay, with, hand sanitizer, masks, and everything else. And oh man, she was upset. She says, "How are we going to get rid of this stuff?" Well, what happened? 1 month later, we're in lockdown. And people are looking for hand sanitizer and masks like you would not believe. Nobody could find them. Now, I could have scalped people. I could have really charged almost anything for those. And but I just marked them up a little bit. My standard markup in retail. Most of the time, the retailer is going to mark up 100% above what they have for wholesale. So I bought these at $12 each. I could have charged $24 for them. I charged 17 and a half. Okay. So I only marked them up by 50% instead of 100%. And then the city came to me. They found out that I had them, and the city bought 3 cases of them for their EMTs and firefighters because they had run out and could not get any hand sanitizer or N95 masks. And then I went back and bought another 5 cases from this guy. Every time I did three different purchases of 5 cases each. And each time he upped his price, but each time I kept my retail price the same. So I kept getting less and less margin as I was selling more and more product. But my primary customer at that time were the EMTs and the firefighters for the city of Round Rock. So that's just how life goes. But if you can get those things, plan now. What are the things that you see running out during a snowstorm or during a blackout or during the lockdown? What were the things people were looking for? And that's what people are going to be looking for again, guaranteed. Okay. So that's Lee's concepts about barter. Let's take a look at your comments and your questions. and ideas and everything else. Any questions, ideas, thoughts, corrections? Do I have things wrong? Am I looking at it from a jaundiced point of view, or what are your thoughts and your opinions? I would like to hear those. Thank you, Clarity Jane. Appreciate that. Okay, so a reminder, next week we will not have a Monday. We're going to begin, next week we begin our 8 weeks of virtues and sins at the church on Monday nights. So for the next 8 weeks, starting next Monday, will be on Wednesdays instead of Mondays, and that'll go for 8 weeks. And I'm looking, if anybody would like to be a panel member, if you have read the two Chinese colonels, I forget their names now. Qiang is one of them. And gosh, now I'm even going to forget the name of the book. Just 1 second. Let me look at my notes of books that I have read. I always keep a list here. Unrestricted Warfare. If you read the Chinese colonels' book, Unrestricted Warfare, or if you know anything about the 5 generations of warfare, and let's take a look at what's going on in the U.S. I believe that we are currently in World War III, and it's because we are using 5th generation warfare. So 4th generation warfare is basically terrorism, where you know what's going on, you see it, it's there to force your opinion, it's there to force you to go in one direction politically or nationally, and or to scare you, to move the feelings of the people. 5th generation warfare sometimes just makes no sense what they're targeting, but they are targeting. Just before I got on here, there's a cattle farm here in Texas. I think it was Milton. 18,000 cattle killed in a barnyard fire. 18,000 cattle. What's that going to do to the price of beef starting tomorrow? So, was this an accident or was it intentional? What about that barge? What about all these spills that are going by water supplies? There was a warehouse fire in West Easton, Pennsylvania, yesterday or the day before. Well, it's a cattle yard, Triple G, a cattle yard fire. But West Easton, Pennsylvania had a warehouse on fire, and it contained some chemicals. Sound familiar? It also contains some medical waste, and it's real close to a river. So it's going to, as they're putting out the fire in this warehouse, and it mixes with the chemicals and the medical waste, and it washes into the river for water contamination. But take a look at all these suspicious things that are happening, fires, derailments, and everything else near water systems. And then all of a sudden, food and food production and food processing places mysteriously going up in flames or whatever. I believe that that's part of this fifth generation warfare that the two Chinese colonels wrote about in 2019, called Unrestricted Warfare. So if you're familiar with that topic, next Wednesday at 8 o'clock, that's the topic we're going to be talking about. I've got Pete from the Roaming Prepper coming on, and he'll be discussing it with us. So if any of you have read that or know anything about the 5 generations of warfare and your opinions on 5th generation warfare and whether or not we're actively in World War III now on a 5th generation warfare type of a thing, unrestricted warfare, please let me know. I'd love to invite you on to have a discussion about that. And those are my thoughts. So next Wednesday, 8 o'clock, with Pete from the Roaming Prepper. Next Tuesday, of course, we'll have the next 2 chapters here. We've got 4 chapters left, and wait a minute, we may have just 2 left. 17 and 18. No, we have 4 left. We have 4 chapters left, to include hygiene, which is one of the areas that I consider to be one of my specialties. And so we'll be completing this book in the next 2 weeks, which means that I would like to get your recommendations on the next nonfiction book that we're going to be discussing on Tuesday nights. And Then, of course, we've got Thursday night, the 20th, we've got Steve Smith, and we're going to be talking about his book number 6 um, of the Stonemont series, his most recent book. We'll have the author here so that you can have that discussion with him. And then, of course, the last Thursday of this week is going to be book 6 of the Survivalist series by A. American, and we'll be talking about that. And there's always a possibility that Chris will come on and talk with us as well. So let me catch up here and make sure that I've got everything. Little Lone Prepper, welcome. It's always good to have you. And yeah, you can go back and watch it. That's strange. It's not happening. And there's a lot of people who aren't getting notifications. I apologize for that. Just, mark your calendar. So for the next 8 weeks, 8 o'clock every Wednesday, and for the next, ad infinitum until we run out of good books, every Tuesday at 8 o'clock for the nonfiction, and then the last Thursday of the month for our fiction book club. So, hello, Tofu. I believe this is an agreement with all the dots. we can't really connect them. We don't have anything to prove that they are, but gosh, it's suspicious that this is unrestricted warfare. Thank you. Hello, Tofu. I appreciate that. So Scott agrees that we are. So I would recommend, Scott, just do me a favor. Go to Wikipedia and look up 5th Generation Warfare. They have a really good article. It's probably about 4 pages long. It explains the 5 generations, going from first generation, which was basically the phalanx, spears and everything else, and then trench warfare, and then mobile warfare, 3rd generation of World War II up through Vietnam. And then 4th generation is based off of terrorism, and then 5th generation is other means like what we're seeing now, where you really can't attribute it to any kind of a kinetic or terroristic type of a thing. They just don't make sense, a lot of the things that are going on. So that's kind of, so if you view those, I would be more than happy to have you join us in the discussion, and that will be next Wednesday, a week from tomorrow. Okay, that's pretty much it for the evening. Thank you all so much for being here. I don't know. Let me tell you, I am so thankful that we have such a great group of people in this group who support each other, who are respectful, kind, and polite to each other, who have great information, like the recommendation about the sports bra this evening. I would have never thought of that. Thank you so much. Your comments are so valuable in the chat. And I just hope that people, when you watch the replay, please pay attention to the chat, because we have a lot of really great people with a lot of really great ideas in the chat. And so I would ask that you go ahead and follow those. I also would ask you, there's a lot of other content creators in the chat. So make sure that you're subscribing to and supporting all the people you can identify in the chat. And thank you for the best moderators out there, because you guys are on top of it. I mentioned things like Furfalagire, and you look up his channel and post it there so people can look at it. You guys are champs. You're just fantastic. And we don't have that many people who cause problems. We've only had one, and well, we've had 2. We've had 2 people who have caused problems in the entire time I've been doing this. And y'all took care of one of them 2 or 3 weeks ago. We gave him a timeout, and he has not been back since. So thank you very much. I really love my moderators. If I could take you out to dinner, I definitely would. Hello, S. Rob. So remember, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. So please, let me show you what, at our men's breakfast this morning, one of my friends has a company, and they make some nice stuff. And then I've lost it, of course. What did I do with it? He made me he and his wife made, here they are. He and his wife made me a coaster for my coffee cup. And not only did they make me a coaster, But they also made me, and gosh, I'm gonna have to wash my hands because this is leather. But he made me a leather patch, and it's got this pull off peel thing here, so it sticks to whatever, and then it's an iron on. So then all you do is apply some heat on this side, and it melts it right onto the fabric that you're going to put that patch on. So I thought that was super, super fantastic, and thank you, Don and Barb, for the nice gifts this morning at breakfast. But anyhow, remember, we're all in this together. So, well, here we go. We're in this together so we can come out the other side together. Please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other. Love each other as He has loved us, because togetherness is what's going to get us through this. Take care, everybody. Good night. Thank you for being here so much.